Tonight, Democrats in North Carolina are accusing Republicans of trying to disenfranchise young black voters. Students at the nation's largest historically black university, North Carolina A&T State University, are fighting to restore an early voting site on campus ahead of the midterm elections. Last week, the Republican majority Guilford County, North Carolina Board of Elections voted 4-1 to remove early voting sites from the campuses of North Carolina A&T and UNC Greensboro, even though both polling places drew more than 6,000 voters each during the 2024 presidential election. Let me repeat that. Both sites drew more than 6,000 voters each in 2024 on those campuses. Democrats and voting rights advocates say this isn't happening in a vacuum. They say it's one of many ways North Carolina Republicans are trying to make it harder for people to vote in their state. Billy Corer writes this for Slate. Since Republicans took over North Carolina's election board last year, they have changed the rules to make it harder to vote early and empowered local Republicans to block certain voters and throw out ballots on party line votes. This week, the state elections board adopted a new rule on Monday that requires voters, instead of local election workers, to fix problems with their absentee ballots if they want them to count. This comes after they changed the rules just last week to allow Republican majorities on local election boards to block voters who cast their ballots through the mail or on Election Day. The plan to remove the early voting sites on the two school campuses now heads to the Republican-controlled State Board of Elections for a final vote. If approved, students who could once walk across campus between classes to vote will now have to travel to off-campus voting locations more than a mile away. One of our next guests, Xavier Jones, political affairs director for the College Democrats of North Carolina A&T, called it a, quote, modern-day poll tax.
The 26th and 24th Amendment provide access to easy voting for those who are 18 and above, and it also confirms and pledges that we will not have to pay a poll tax. Without those central locations on either campus, to me, it represents a modern-day poll tax, where students will have to find avenues and other ways to go vote instead of having to walk simply to the student center, to the CAF, to go vote, and then right back to class. Instead, now we have to fix our schedules around it, get student shuttles together, get other organizations to bus us places instead of having something that's easy, accessible, and our right.
Joining us now is Anderson Clayton, chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and Xavier Jones himself, student at North Carolina A&T University and political affairs director for the North Carolina A&T College Democrats. To both of you, thanks for joining us here this evening. Xavier, you called what Republicans are doing a, quote, modern-day poll tax. Do you feel like black students at North Carolina A&T are being intentionally disenfranchised by the Republican majority election board?
Good evening. And absolutely, this is not just happening here, which lets me know that this is a move to disenfranchise minority voters. It's happening at UNCG, a majority minority institution. It's happening at Western Carolina University, a school that sits in the largest precinct for African American voters in the state. My own school sits in the third largest precinct for African American voters in the state. This is an intentional effort and coordinated by state and local Republicans to disenfranchise young black voters.
I want you to dive into that a little bit more. Can you explain the makeup of the county elections board and the state elections board, who will ultimately have the final say, and how they make the decisions of where these early voting locations and these polling sites on Election Day are set up?
So our county board right now in Guilford is 3-2 Republican to Democrat. I do not have the exact figures for the state board, but just like our legislature, it is controlled by Republicans. And I believe it actually might be 3-2, 4-2 as well. But, you know, they're playing partisan games with our rights. And it sort of is upsetting to see when it's not that hard to see the truth of their actions. You know, they have plenty of excuses on why they're doing this. But again, like I just gave the figures there, you all have the figures as well. This is coordinated.
I know one of them that I was reading the reporting from Brandon Lingdaller over at the NC Newsline. And he writes that the sites at UNC Greensboro and North Carolina A&T saw 6,800 and 6,487 early voters in 2024, respectively, making them the number 16 and number 17 most used sites in Guilford County during the presidential election. By contrast, the Stokesdale site that board members voted to add from the 2024 general election map saw the fewest voters of any site in the county that year, with 2,857 early ballots. And to be fair, access for rural communities is important too. But Anderson, when you're looking at this, not just in this county, but my understanding, I know there's a similar situation about an hour away that is taking place over in Granville County. Can you explain what you're seeing in the different counties as you as a party are trying to track where these locations are being set up compared to 2024?
At the end of 2024, Republicans lost the control of the supermajority in the state legislature. And instead of doing what they needed to do, which was help Hurricane Helene victims in Western North Carolina, Republicans chose to come in and instead pass a bill called Senate Bill 382. Senate Bill 382 stripped the power of our Democratic governor that had an overwhelmingly majority of a margin in North Carolina, Governor Josh Stein, who had won by 15 points in North Carolina in 2024 that year with majority support from voters across this state. Republicans stripped away his power to appoint boards of elections members, giving that power, making us the only state in the country to have a state auditor right now that is running our election system in North Carolina instead of a secretary of state or our governor like it is in any other state in the country. And Republicans did that because it was the only statewide race in 2024 that they were able to keep hold to on the Council of State level. And so we know that this has been a strategy that Republicans have used since they knew that Democrats and voters across North Carolina did not give them majorities coming into this election cycle. And what we've seen time and time again are voters and volunteers across this state meet Republicans where they are and making sure they're showing up to these Board of Elections meetings and ensuring that we're going to help students get out to vote this year across these college campuses. Because to the point that was just made by my fantastic College Dems president and person on A&T's campus is just the opportunity right now to engage young students about these voting sites being taken away. Republicans have awakened a sleeping giant, and folks are concerned about young people turning out to vote this year. We just had a whole College Dems retreat in the NCDP headquarters today, filled with 15 people that are excited to get out this year. There's presidents at their college campuses, and they are ready to mobilize young people across North Carolina, thanks to what Republicans are doing right now in this state.
Xavier, Thom Tillis, the incumbent Republican senator, we've been talking a lot about him, but he's going to be on the way out, choosing to retire from the Senate instead of run for re-election. And instead you have Roy Cooper, the Democratic governor, running for that Senate seat against Michael Whatley, the former RNC National Republican Party chair. And when you're looking at a state like North Carolina, it's one the Democrats want to pick up. From your own conversations with your friends on campus, but also elsewhere across the state, how important would you articulate the HBCU community and students on these college campuses, including over at UNC Greensboro, that lost one of these polling locations, be to Roy Cooper's chances to take this seat currently held by Republicans?
It's very important. Our schools hold, again, majority minority populations, as well as very liberal populations. I don't want to mix it up, though. There are some conservatives on these campuses, but I think it's more about the freedom of all to vote, regardless of party lines. I will be truthful in saying, though, however, that many of Roy Cooper's voters are at these schools. Guilford County itself is, again, I think the second or third largest Democratic area in the state. So this is very important when it comes to Roy Cooper, when it comes to other Democratic victories, past, present, and future in North Carolina. Greensboro in general, as well as UNCG and A&T, are extremely important to all Democratic chances in statewide elections in North Carolina.
Xavier Jones, Anderson Clayton, appreciate you both. I have no doubt that over the next 95 days, our team will be in touch with you guys year ahead.